is your lucky day. As always, it is Brad Stine, God's Comic, and this is Brad Stine Has Issues, where comedy, conservatism, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity. I am Brad Stine, God's Comic. I do comedy, do a little acting on the side, wrote a couple books, and I bring on special guests. This week, Cindy Bond. That's right, she's a producer of faith-based films, and she's got one of the most famous of all time. I can only imagine that she produced, and you're going to hear all about the inside story about how that movie was made and how you make movies. You might be out there going, I want to make a movie. I want to make a movie. How do I do it, Cindy Bond? And she's going to say, I'm right here. I'm going to show you how to do it. This is July. It is the July 22, 2024, which means America is going crazy. Joe Biden walked out. I'm gone, he saith. And now apparently he's going to endorse.
What?
Oh, Kamala Harris. And I've always thought to myself, man, if Joe, God forbid, if he ever bails, at least we have Kamala or Kamala. I don't know how to say it. Why do you?
I don't take much care of politics. I think it's Kamala, but I don't know.
All right. Well, listen, why is it that you don't get into politics? And I think a lot of kids your age, you're 28. I think a lot of guys your age, they don't get into politics. It does not interest them. Is that true?
I don't think it's that it doesn't interest us so much as we all accept that it's hopeless, so why even bother?
Do you think that's the way you should live your life, just thinking it's hopeless, or do you think you should figure out a way to overcome?
I don't think saying everything is hopeless is good.
Okay.
But if the writing's on the wall, read it.
Yeah. Well, and isn't that the beauty of it? I'm trying, son. I'm trying. I can't find it.
I know
it doesn't show up anywhere.
Try typing in Brad Stine Has Issues into the search bar.
Okay.
I'm having to walk this man through how to look at a video on his own channel.
It didn't show up before, but it just did. Folks, I did it. I did it.
You've done the bare minimum we ever asked of you.
So
Good
what?
job.
I don't care. I'm a techno guy, and I'm a wizard. Call me Bill Gates without the
that
deep
means
narcissistic desire to rule the world because I've made a good computer product, and so now I literally think I can control what you can eat and the weather and the food supply. Guy's a lunatic.
So that means that now that you're a tech whiz, you don't need me to do this. You can press the buttons now, right?
Yeah, well, maybe. Can you make the buttons about that big and just say like start, stop, slow, funny gag,
I'm sorry.
cool photo,
I'm sorry.
insert?
If I did, would it be enough?
I don't know.
Yeah,
probably not.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I jumped right in, and as soon as it started, it went to commercial. YouTube.
Yeah, I had to wait 20 seconds to actually make sure that the audio was working.
You mean like when you were looking at it and you started this whole thing, it went to ads?
Yeah, it went to ad. 20-second unskippable ad. Thanks, YouTube.
Now, you know that supposedly brings in monetization to help us support our
Okay, yes, but here's the thing. When they started rolling them out, they were 5-second skippable ads.
Oh.
That was fine. I can do that.
Yeah.
Then some of them became 5-second unskippable ads, which again, I wasn't the biggest fan, but whatever. You gotta make money somehow.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. 20-second unskippable ad. I'm fuming.
Hey,
that ain't okay.
So, here's what's interesting, though, because if you were a guy giving money for your ad and you go onto a program because you think people are watching, so, hey, maybe I'll sell some stuff, and people can just skip it, in a way, aren't you getting ripped off?
Not really, because as long as you know that they can skip it, so you put the name of your brand as the first thing they see, they're not going to skip it fast enough to not see your logo. And that's really all you need, right?
Maybe.
I mean, come on. I know that they always try to be like funny or like interesting, but be honest. How effective are these ads for you besides, oh, that's the name of the thing, maybe I'll do that? Do you ever actually listen to the commercial and go, That was well written and
You
a
know,
great point.
I think that's an interesting observation, Wyatt. How many people out there? I'm talking to you guys because you're my people, and we'll get to you. I'll say hi in a minute. Right now, we got business to attend to. People need to see that we have witty banter, Wyatt.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta pay the bill somehow.
Listen, did you know my first band was Witty Banter?
No, how did it end? You spent too much time bickering than writing songs?
Yeah, it was like the Beatles, except for we weren't famous, didn't make any money, and nobody liked our songs. Other than that, it was like the Beatles.
Well, I mean, I guess I can argue against that.
No, you could. You usually
But
do.
honestly, I'm above that.
Are you? Since when?
Well, it's not so much that I'm but above that as you're below that.
It's almost like you skipped through this ad.
What?
Okay, here's what I was wondering.
I'm trying to think like all the possible ways that could have correlated to what we're talking about. I got nothing.
Well,
I got
listen,
nothing, man.
I just wanted you to know that we're living in a crazy worldwide. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. Have you ever heard of the presidency of the United States? You ever heard of that?
I love that joke.
Yeah. Well, yes. Well, that joke has passed. It's moved on. It's past a kidney stone, perhaps. But we've lost wondrous Joe Biden. And you know, folks, I don't know. I just watched some clips from the CIA head, who apparently had a lapse of um, competency when it came to trying to keep a candidate from being shot in the head. Now, if you are the CIA head, Wyatt, isn't your job, if there was like a lot, and I'm sure there's a lot you got to do. You got to paint things. You got to resurface the driveway. You probably have to get the car in for its 10,000-mile check. I mean, there's things that are heavy on your plate. But wouldn't you think that if you're the CIA head, that maybe one of the top priorities would be keeping presidents and ex-presidents from being shot in the face?
I'm not sure if the CIA cares about that, but the Secret Service probably would.
Well, okay, but that's kind of like the same. Aren't they kind of all mixed together?
I thought they were different things, honestly.
Well, I guess I was maybe.
Well,
they probably are.
In answer to your question,
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's hard to be a Secret Service agent.
Yes. Was that you, Wyatt?
Yeah.
What happened? Was it? I know you would talk to me about reliving your childhood, but I just didn't think. And you were going through some special new therapeutic method.
They say it works. Okay, I'm just saying I'm seeing results.
Well,
they may not be stuff anyone else wants to see, but
Well, when you start pooping your pants, you're going to have to look for someone else.
Adds to the realism.
That's true. I know. I'll give you credit. At least you're all in, son.
Like, look, listen. If you're going to make a radical change to your life that will affect you forever, you gotta commit. Otherwise, you're only fooling yourself.
Yes, Wyatt, and admitting that you poop your pants is the first step to recovery, son.
The second spot is doing it again, right?
I think so.
To really send a message.
Like, I'm not screwing around. This is legit. I'm all in. Well, listen, I was curious, though, about if you had any thoughts about just, I mean, I don't even know nobody knows what to think about what's happening in America. It's so weird. It's so clearly a violation. The Constitution has long been bypassed. Democracy, there is none. They had their candidate and they just threw him out, and then they elected somebody. All the people voted for him. You can't do that. You're not allowed to do that if you're a Republican, if you are a group that allows people to vote. So clearly, Wyatt, they have decided that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, and to try to keep Donald Trump from destroying democracy, they've decided to bypass democracy so they could defend democracy from the guy that's going to destroy democracy. Thus, they need to destroy democracy in order to keep democracy sacrosanct. That, my friends, is something only a progressive could conjure up in their absolutely lunatic little brains. Wyatt, what more can I say? Well done. Well played. When you live in a world where whatever you identify as becomes true, I guess all bets are off. Make it up as you go, because who am I to be bigoted enough to judge?
Yeah. What he said.
Well, it was a little soliloquy about the crazy that's happening on this earth, Wyatt, and it just bugged me, and I just felt like I needed to say something. Speaking of saying something, one of the things that people don't understand, people watching for the first time, and we got hundreds of people watching for the first time, we constantly want to bring
I
on.
only see 18 people watching.
Yeah, what are you saying though? What are you
You
getting?
said hundreds.
Yeah.
Where's everyone else?
Well, I feel like to me, 18 is an element of hundreds.
I mean, it's 1/10 of it. So
So in a way,
You're
it's
90% wrong.
hundreds of people, but they're just in segments. They're just doing it as a tenth at a time, ish.
you know what? I'll buy it.
So
I'll buy it.
here's what I was curious about though. Do you feel like, um, you said earlier, it's like, you just feel like, yeah, it's all going haywire and life is just not what you had hoped when you graduated from school and went on to become to ETSU, East Tennessee State, where you spent 3 years in class and your dorm. Oh, no, no, no. You threw in the cafeteria every now and again, where you would eat raw spinach and call it salad.
That is a salad is leafy green thing and friends. Saying that eating raw spinach in a bowl isn't a salad is like saying a cheeseburger plain isn't a cheeseburger.
Mm.
As long as you get the main ingredient, you're fine.
What is the main ingredient?
Well, in the case of cheeseburger, cheese.
Have you ever thought why they call it a burger?
Wasn't it like wasn't he like an emperor or something, or like a king?
Who?
Uh, some guy who ruled the land of Hamburger or something, playing a chess match and wanted to eat a sandwich.
Oh, you're talking about how they came up, the Earl of Sandwich, how
Yeah,
they came up
yeah,
with
the
the
Earl of
word
Sand- yeah.
sandwich. I'd said, how do they come up with the term burger?
I thought that was the same story.
No.
Wait, was it sandwich?
No,
or
he had
was it
like
burger?
cheese and meat, and he just shoved it all together and ate it together. And what are the odds that this guy sitting there playing poker with his Aristotelian air and had some cheese and some meat and some bread, which even the peasants had? How is it that nobody else ever thought to, why don't we just kind of put them all next to each other? Like this guy had this brainstorm and nobody had ever come up with that ever? That's ridiculous. Of course they did. Wyatt?
Okay,
What's wrong
but
with you?
Somebody, somewhere, had to be the first one to invent it.
Yeah?
So who was it?
Hamburgers?
Yeah, who was it? If it wasn't the Earl of Sandwich, then maybe it was the Duke of Hamburg. Who knows?
Well, I know that. What I'm wondering is if it came from Hamburg, Germany, and it was sausage, and they called it a Hamburg, like a sausage food, and they just called it a hamburger, and they just, it's kind of like just like a fancy name for sausage food. And
but then when they invented the idea of cheese, why didn't they call it a cheese hamburger? Why did they make it a cheeseburger? Why make a portmanteau of a town name and a random dairy product?
So they should have called it a
They should have called it a cheese hamburger.
burger cheese.
Or a hamburger with cheese.
Okay.
Why shorthand it?
Yeah.
Like they made a new word. Why?
Well, let me ask you something about words.
Yes.
Have you ever thought about every single word that ever existed didn't used to exist and somebody made it up?
Yes, I've thought of every single word ever. Yeah, I've read the dictionary.
Okay, but think about this. Every word, there was a moment when there wasn't that word. So how did they say sky before there was a word sky? Did they just go, and somebody said, you know what? I'll bet we could make that a little bit more precise.
No, I think it was like a conversation like, hey, my friend was talking about that thing up there. Which friend? Oh, that sky? Oh, you meant the, and
And
then
they
Sky.
misinterpreted
Yeah, and then they
it.
misinterpreted it.
Okay.
I know that at least one word has been invented that way.
Which one?
One of them.
Okay. Do you believe in chemtrails?
No.
Not no?
No,
Or that
no.
means you do.
No, I don't do
That
not.
was a double negative.
I don't do not.
Oh, you do then don't. I
Yes,
see.
I do and then do not.
I got you. Well, that's all I was wondering because they made it illegal to run chemtrails in Tennessee.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
But then why do I keep seeing them then?
Well,
It's illegal. They can't do that.
because they're up in the sky
But
and it's hard to capture them. It's hard to
What?
rope
Just get
them.
a cartoon butterfly net and just sort of hop around.
Cartoon butterfly net.
The,
You mean the big giant ones?
the giant ones with holes in the net that are like basically the size of the object they're trying to catch?
I think that would be fun to have a butterfly net because it would be easy to catch them that way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Have you
yeah.
ever had a butterfly net?
I've seen them in person, yeah.
Ever caught anything with it?
Disappointment.
Why is it that you could would you let a butterfly land on your hand?
I have.
Yeah, it doesn't scare you, right?
Why would it scare me?
If it died, would you
Yeah.
would you not now want to pick it up?
Yeah,
Why?
because it's dead. It's
What's the
weird.
difference?
It's already begun
It's the
decomposing.
same shell with the same thing. It just
Yes.
isn't moving.
It's not moving, but I just know that it's decomposing. It's rotting in my hand. Its guts and organs are spilling out ever so slowly. Pretty soon, it's just, look, the main problem I have with killing things is I don't want the guts on me, okay?
I don't think otherwise you'd kill things. As long as
Yeah,
the guts stay
literally
put.
the only thing stopping me.
I
Nothing
get
else.
You. I
You're
just,
welcome, people.
Yeah, I know. No
You're
kidding.
welcome. I'm squeamish lately.
Yeah, right. That would really suck if you're a serial killer and you're squeamish.
Oh my god. You would
Just
never
ruins your day.
You turn yourself in if you get a drop on it, like, oh, get it off, get it off, get it off, get it off.
Yeah, right.
Yes, I killed those people. Now, like, get me out of it. Give me
Help
a straw or
me.
something.
Oh my gosh. Well, your job as a producer has paid quite dividends. We're on Salem Network now on live audio, and most of the comments there are, who's this Wyatt? Why do we hear him but never see him? We love him. He's amazing. He's fascinating. But I've had a lot of people asking about Lowe's, and I tell the folks that's his part-time job. That's what we call a side hustle. He's still going to school online, almost finished. You'll be done in October. You'll have an official degree. And at that point, I expect you to start bringing in some serious money and giving some to me. I'd like it.
I'd like it too.
Yeah. So that's coming. October, you're going to be loaded. So I don't even know what you're going to do with your money at that point.
Yeah.
Because you'll have a degree. And if you haven't learned anything, a degree is all you need to become very successful in America.
Basically, yeah. Basically.
Oh, changes everything.
Oh, I mean, especially like a liberal arts degree.
Oh.
Or a bit, like, you could use those anywhere. It's like a golden ticket to fame.
Feminine studies, huge, credible.
Postmodern arts.
Oh, my Lord, yes, yes. Well,
Anyone can throw a bucket of paint on a canvas and call it art. But only an artist can throw a bucket of paint on a canvas and call it art.
yes. Well, yeah, and give it credibility.
Yeah,
And if I
you
threw
need
a-
that sheepskin, otherwise you're just some lunatic with gallons of paint and nothing to do with them.
And if I threw it on the sheet, it'd be like he's crazy. But if I did it with a degree in postmodern art, I'm a genius.
It's almost like a Rorschach test for money laundering.
That's exactly what it is. Why? That was quite clever. I'm going to give you that one. I want that edited. I want it reduced. I'm going to say it here. I'm going to repeat it here in a second.
Please.
No, I'm going to repeat it in a second, but I want your part edited out so it sounds like I thought of that.
Oh, so now so what? I get all the money from this podcast. You get all the credit. Okay.
Listen, I'll take the credit. Give me the credit.
Okay, fine, whatever. Hey, you can have my cheeseburger bit too while you're at it. That was a slam dunk.
Not really. So, but I do want to talk about Lowe's because, last week we were discussing Larry. Now, I don't know if you are aware of this, but Larry is still trying his best.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well,
He's trying.
Is he still trying to lift 250-pound items with his bare hands?
Oh, no, we've graduated since then.
Really? What's Larry up to now?
Okay, so If you've ever been to a Lowe's,
Mm.
we have these green sort of security alarm things.
Yeah, you told me about this
Now,
last week.
they are so. I did.
Didn't
I told you the story about.
The turtle.
Yeah. What was the story? Because I don't remember telling you the
You
story.
said that the only way you can stop the turtle is to demagnetize it.
Yeah.
And you showed Larry how to do it, and he started hitting it.
Yeah, he literally turned it upside down and started bashing it with a turtle killer like a monkey trying to break a coconut with a rock.
Right.
So this is actually, I didn't know I told the story. I must be blanking. Luckily, that wasn't the story I wanted to tell this
Oh,
week.
good. Yeah. Go ahead.
So, it came to my attention literally yesterday.
Okay.
Lowe's had a bit of an issue with a rental truck. Now, I'm going to show you a picture that I took.
Okay.
I want you to tell
This
me
is
if you
gonna be
can't
good.
find what the issue is.
Okay. This has got to be good, son.
Just give it a second to show up there.
Okay, that's the rental.
Yep.
Uh,
Anything look interesting about it?
well, it looks like there might be what I would call a dent in the front.
Okay. What about this picture of that same car?
It looks like the hood is like popped open and it looks like the grill has been smashed.
All right. But what about this other picture?
Well, it looks like it's filled with junk.
So the story about this is this truck was stolen in April.
Okay.
We have a GPS tracker on it, so we were able to find what it was.
Okay.
This was the condition it was in
Yeah.
when we found it.
Okay.
By the way, it smells horrible.
Okay.
You can smell it from like 10 feet away.
Okay.
It's been sitting in an auto body repair shop
Okay.
since then. So what is that?
I
2
don't know.
months?
Okay.
3 months? Yeah, 3
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
It just got towed to our store Friday afternoon.
Okay.
It is currently sitting in the parking lot in our store in full view of anyone who wants to look at it.
Right. I don't think that's a good optic if you're trying
No.
Yeah.
And you know what the best part is?
to. No.
A bunch of corporate bigwigs are coming on Wednesday to search the entire store, including the parking lot.
Search it.
Well, like observe it and see if we're doing good.
Wyatt.
By the way, we're not.
Okay. Well, listen. Maybe
Yeah.
something can get fixed or
Well,
helped it
Here's
before
the
then.
thing. The reason why it was towed here was
Yeah.
because it cost $23,000 to fix and clean it. And Lowe's decided that was just too rich for their blood.
Yes.
So it got towed here, to the surprise of our manager, by
Yeah.
the way. Even he
Yeah.
didn't know we did just dumped trash onto the parking lot.
My Lord.
So yeah, I had to take some pictures of that when I found it because you wouldn't believe me if I just told you the story. I had to show you. I needed proof.
No, it was crazy. And speaking of crazy, I gotta say that I was looking at our chats. Ashley Haas seems to came in first. Hi, Brad, Wyatt, and everyone. Now I know that name. I've heard that name, but why?
I think that was the tow truck driver who delivered our truck.
That's
Yeah,
it. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah,
That-
that's what it was.
you did send me that text. Jim Bronall's here. Good evening, Brad, and of course Wyatt. So glad it's Monday night. I don't blame it. Paula Faye Marie Gee. Why am I laughing, Wyatt?
Wait, Paul
What did she discover finally on
She
YouTube?
found the two missing names.
You know where they were?
Canada.
In the back of that truck.
That was my next guess.
All right. Hey, Cabo, that's, of course, Karen Boyd. Hey, all my friends. Dusty, I guess. Hello, friends. I don't know why that did that. There it is. Because it was an ad. Marshall Reed. Good evening, Brad and White and everybody. Let's see. Michael Quackenbush, the Bushquacker. Good evening, everyone. Hope your week was blessed. Carrie Tudor. Hi, all. I'm just some guy. Who's that?
Who's
I'm
that?
just some guy.
Who? Wait.
I'm
what?
just some guy.
Some guy with a hat.
Who is he? You know who it is? It's
No, I don't. Saint Nicholas.
He has
Saint
become,
Nick.
yeah. Ads. Good evening, Brad Stine, White, and everyone. He got shut out by the ads. Aaron Oakes back again for more of the highlight of my Mondays. Hello, Brad White. Now, you notice what he used to say, Aaron Oakes, that this podcast was the highlight
of his Monday.
of their
Of
week.
his week.
What did he just say this time? It's the highlight of my
Okay.
Mondays.
Mondays.
He used to say of his
Oh my
week.
goodness.
Wyatt, we're starting to suck.
This podcast is officially 1/7 as good as usual. Dang it.
All right.
You know what? It was the sticking sandwich joke. That's what drew him away.
Hey, Gianna Sizemore's here, though, and she said hi, Brad and Wyatt. Sirloin did it is what I'm just some guy said, which means the ads. DNA diverted, evening all. I do not know DNA diverted. This is a brand new corpuscle. Let's see. Oh, so I'm way behind because he goes, woohoo, you're now a tech guru. And that's just because I found how to find everybody. Dusty, I guess I never liked politics. Karen saying, haha, poor Wyatt, the frustration. Let's see, who else is out there? Yes, it's called a jitterbug phone for seniors. I don't know what that means, Wyatt.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to find that comment.
I can't figure it out. I hit refresh and it usually ends the ads. That's Dusty.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, Haas, now she's a tow truck driver, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
She just said I had an ad that was over an hour before.
I actually had an ad once that was an hour and a half long, and it was the entire SpongeBob movie.
What?
Yeah, like the first one, the entire thing, start to finish.
Was it the ad?
It was an ad, yeah.
I don't get that.
I think somebody bought the ad just to mess with people.
Oh. You know what Aaron Oak says? I will always skip the ads, no doubt about it. I didn't click on a video to watch an ad. Skip to my Lou. Ashley throws up again. Was it about to skip it, but took me a while to realize that I could skip it. So Wyatt, I think you got everybody flustered when you said they were unskippable. Danny showed up. There she is. Hello, everyone. She's now going by full-blown Daniel Herring. She has decided I'm out. I'm Canadian. I'm going into the gulag. You might as well find me if you can get past my moose. And they have lots of moose, I might add.
I believe the plural for that is meese.
Could be.
I mean, look, if the plural for goose is geese, then shouldn't the plural of moose be meese?
I would hope so.
I mean, why wouldn't it? It doesn't make sense. They are literally the exact same word with one letter replaced. Why would the plural not be the same?
Wyatt, you don't have to argue with me. I think meese.
Well, I need to argue with someone, and the chat's moving too slowly.
Right. You know what Nate just said? Wyatt's losing it. That will buff out. Oh, he's laughing at the thing. That'll buff out. Here's your problem.
Yeah, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Got no gas.
Gary Tudor says, we get big wigs every other week. I work today, so I'm so tired.
And then what looks like red popcorn crying.
You know, Paul of Fame Marie Rauch. Yeah. Red popcorn crying. Paul of Fame Marie Rauch, my favorite four-legged named lady, said they were redacted. And Des Stine says, Wyatt, who the heck she is, stealing our name.
Oh, the jitterbug. So you know that comment about like the phone for senior citizens?
No.
It's a special kind of phone that has exceptionally large buttons so that senior citizens. So they were basically saying you need an old-timey, like an old person's phone.
Do you think I'm old? What do you like? What to you?
Absolutely not. However, calling you old is statistically funny.
No, but what do you consider old? You're 28, so, and I'm serious. I don't care. I just want to know. What do you consider, like, if you...
80s, in my opinion.
So if somebody's in their 80s, so if somebody was like 73, you wouldn't sit there going, he's kind of old. You wouldn't think like that?
Old-ish.
Okay.
Is 70 to
so
80.
to you, 80s is like, now you're old.
80 is old, 90 is ancient, 100 is...
petrified?
Yeah, like...
Fossilized?
Like... I don't even believe that you're still alive. I think you're just a puppet people are like parading around for so much money.
Or you're the president.
Yeah, either. I mean, who says they can't be mutually exclusive?
I didn't say that.
Exactly, yeah.
I would, and nor would I. Wyatt, I don't know if you know who Cindy Bond is. Are you familiar with Cindy?
I don't really know.
Okay. Do you ever watch movies?
Not really, no.
Okay, so you're not a big movie watcher.
If it's not a comedy, I do Central Street.
What's your favorite comedy?
Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Okay. Which joke in that do you continue to laugh at no matter how many times you see?
The Bridge of Death. The absolute highlight of that whole thing.
Which is your favorite line from The Bridge of Death?
What is your name?
I'm Arthur, King of the Britons.
What is your quest?
To seek the Holy Grail.
What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
What do you mean, African or European?
I don't know that. Every single time. Every single time.
Oh, that's so funny. Even us doing it is so fun. It was just the perfectly crafted
Genuinely,
callback of all time.
genuinely, I think it's safe to say that one of the absolute best examples of a joke being funny
Yeah.
is if no, the best compliment you can give a joke is just repeating the joke verbatim.
And it still works.
Yeah. That's, to me, is how you know your joke was funny.
But the other thing that made it funny, now that I think about it, what happened to them is they just went flying up in the air, and then they'd fall down like clearly a dummy because they didn't have any. So that also made it funny. Just looks, they just go. Whoosh.
Yeah, that was so good.
Well, listen, what movie were you most disappointed in that you were really having high expectations for?
That is a very good question.
You're welcome.
Because, well, as you know, I don't really watch a lot of movies.
Yeah.
So it's really rare for me to have my expectations up because I barely.
Well, there was
have
never a movie like you were
expectations.
excited to see, and when you saw it, you said, like you loved all the Lego movies.
I would say Lego Movie 2 wasn't quite as good as I had wanted it to be, but I don't think I'd say I didn't like it.
Is that the one where the kid's dad was the bad guy?
That's the first one.
Oh.
Which is an amazing twist, by the way, at the end.
Yes. I don't remember it.
Oh,
What about
a
the
good-
Batman one, though?
That's a great. Literally, when that movie came out, I saw reviews for it because it released around the time that an actual Batman movie came out.
Yeah.
The consensus among every person I saw a review for was that the Lego Batman movie was a better Batman movie than Batman.
But it was a comedy.
Doesn't matter. It
Okay.
still nailed the character. It
Yeah.
still created a good story. Just
Right.
because it's a comedy doesn't mean it can't be good.
I mean, how do they write that well? I mean, they had so many little, just
Mhm.
idiosyncratic, like when he was like it's Batman with every gadget, and he couldn't get the timer on his DVD player to work or whatever it was. Or,
Yeah.
I mean, just little funny.
Well, a large part of it is just knowing the source material. There were so many references to basically every era of Batman.
Mm.
I don't think there was a single stone they didn't turn over.
So they were making references to old, like
It
legitimate
wasn't.
feature film Batmans. How about the
It
this
wasn't-
campy '60s Batman?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They literally have a moment where they're like, okay, they're surrounded, and Robin goes, "Okay, Batman, what are we gonna do?" And then Batman says, "We're gonna punch these people so hard that words describing the force of the impact will materialize out of thin air." And then it does all the onomatopoeias.
Wham!
Yeah, literally.
Wow!
Yeah, literally.
Kazoom!
They also used shark repellent.
Oh.
They also had that joke.
Did they have the shark attached to his leg and he was trying to beat it?
No, it was oh shoot, who's the villain? There's a villain who's an actual shark.
Oh.
Yeah, so they just used it on him.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know there was a shark villain.
Oh no, I mean they used every single villain. They used villains that appeared once and then never again.
Well, did I ever tell you the story about my film I did called Welcome to Paradise, and did some scenes with Brian Dennehy?
Yes,
I did tell you that story?
No, I don't think you told me the story, but I
Oh.
remember that movie.
Oh, okay. So, did you ever watch any of the Rambo movies?
I don't think so. No.
You know what they're about at all, or
Oh yeah, I know who Rambo is and all the stuff he's done. Yeah.
yeah, what has he done?
All I know is that he's a shirtless guy who aims a machine gun somewhere in the general vicinity of the enemies, and then they just start exploding.
All right. Well, he was like I think a Vietnam veteran, came trying to go through a town. They start roughing him up. He goes nuts. He escapes. They go after him, and he just has to survive on his wits, and he ends up wiping everybody out. And of course, it's Sylvester Stallone. And if you had a son, would you want to name him Sylvester?
Well, look, I'm just gonna say, if I'm gonna name him Sylvester, it's because I want him to learn how to defend himself, because he's gonna get bullied a lot for that name.
Well, then there you go. You know, in the 70s, Johnny Cash, you ever heard of him?
Yeah, Johnny, I've heard of Johnny Cash.
Okay. Well, Johnny Cash had a.
That's a name I'd like to give my kid.
No kidding. Well, did you know that he had a famous song in the 70s? It was a big hit. It was called A Boy Named Sue.
I didn't know that, no.
Yeah. Oh, you can look it up on your iTunes. A Boy Named Sue. And the whole concept was that this kid was trying to find his dad to kill him. It's in the song. And the reason is because he never met his dad. His dad ran out of him, but before he left, he named him Sue. So he was a boy named Sue. So when he finally finds his dad in the saloon, he's about to kill him. He's like, son, I knew I wasn't going to be around to help you. So I knew, well, I'm going to call you Sue, because then everybody's going to bully you and try to beat you, and you're going to have to learn how to fight to defend yourself. So I literally gave you that name so that you would learn to be strong and powerful and be able to overcome every obstacle, because your name is Sue. And that's the entire premise of the song. It was a big hit, and you would think to yourself, change your name. Don't tell anybody that's my name. I'm going to go by a different name. I'll just say Bob.
Just call yourself John or Bob.
That's it.
Nobody has to know.
Have you ever wondered why the nickname for Robert is Bob? The nickname for Richard is Dick.
No,
The nickname for James is Jim.
Wait,
three
what?
of those nicknames, Wyatt, are nicknames of larger names, and they nicknamed them by giving them a smaller name that you could have named them all along. If you want to call him Dick, name him Dick, not Richard.
That is an actual name.
Yes.
That was
if you want to name him, if you want to call him Bob growing up, don't name him Robert. If you want to call him Jim, don't call him James. Do you know what the nickname of John is? Jack.
Why?
That's what I'm saying.
That doesn't even make... It's like, the more this happens, the less connected the words become.
You know what the nickname for Jack is?
Steven, I don't know.
No, there is none. That's the point.
Why isn't there one?
Because they used John up already.
Well,
Getting to
why
Jack.
not John Senior or something? I don't know.
I'm just saying, son, that I don't understand the nickname thing. Like, my name is Bradley. Did you know my full name was Bradley?
I would rather not.
Yeah, you didn't know that was my name, Bradley?
I kind of did, but I also could have subconsciously blocked that out.
Well,
of my
yeah,
memory.
It's frightening. It's horrific.
It's literally, like, I think of you less of a person now.
I
Absolutely, yeah.
But even with more letters, you thought of me as less of a person.
I mean, listen, like this, it's that whole concept, like the sum of the parts is the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Yes.
You're the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. The more parts you add, the lesser it becomes.
Well, but they call me Brad, and that's all they've ever called me is Brad. But there's Bradley, and there's Bradford.
Wait, okay, no. I'm going to stop you right there. No sane person in the history of forever has ever unironically called their child Bradford.
How about Braderick?
How about no?
Okay. Well, anyways, my name is Bradley, but they only call me Brad. Yeah. So that they just shorten the name, and so it makes one wonder, why don't you just call them what you named them?
Well, if I had to guess, and this is just a guess,
yeah.
Well, you can change your name. It takes time, and I think it does cost money to do it, like officially.
Yeah.
So instead of going through all that nonsense, why not just pick a name that can be interpreted as many other names as possible?
Give me an example.
Well, Robert, Bob. What if you...
Rob?
Yeah, Rob.
Bert?
Yeah, literally.
My gosh.
All of these names, and you can choose them for free at any point in time, and it makes sense to people. It's not like I'm Wyatt, but actually I'm Stanley. Like, that doesn't work. No one would buy that.
So is there a nickname for Wyatt?
Why?
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 Because everybody else has one.
Well, no, I know, but why?
Because why should Robert get one and John get one,
No,
but not
no,
you?
Robert doesn't have it. I am why.
Right. That's what I meant all along.
Yes, but why?
Okay. Maybe this segment of the show is dragging.
This segment is brought to you by getting dropped on the cutting room floor.
Hey, man. Hey, listen, I got to tell you something, son. Oh, look what somebody just said. Daddy, I guess. Can I call you Bradford, Brad? You can, but I won't answer. And by the way, Paula Faye Marie Raucci, my favorite forenamed lady, she knows a Bradford. And it's her father, and he just passed. So now she feels bad and she's weeping. Thanks so much, Wyatt.
Are you sure she feels bad because he passed or because his name was Bradford? Think before you act. Think before you criticize me.
No.
Honestly, if his name was Bradford, that is... I can't finish that thought. Nope, I can't. I am aborting the joke. I am pressing the button. I'm aborting it.
I really don't know if we should be saying abortion on this podcast.
Oh, come on. They
Well,
already hate us on YouTube. What, how worse can it get?
I guess that's true.
Yeah,
hey, what would be our nickname for Brett Son Has Issues? Issues?
Issues? We got them.
You know who issued from my loins?
Can we not do this?
Why?
I am going to mute you.
Listen, I got to tell you something about Rambo. There's a reason I brought it up. So if you saw the first Rambo, it was called First Blood. And it was a great movie. It was great if you like action, right? And the sheriff of Rambo was also a guy that I have worked with. His name is Brian Denny. He's a very famous character actor, okay? And he was the sheriff on Rambo. So suddenly I'm doing Welcome to Paradise, this movie about this woman that is a pastor in a church in Texas, and she moves to this tiny town. They don't want a woman pastor. Well, I don't. I played a character that didn't want a female pastor. And so he played the father of my wife in the movie. And so there was a scene in the movie, if any of you have seen it, and you can look it up, called Welcome to Paradise. It might be on Amazon Prime. You can look, probably on YouTube, who knows. Though I've seen a couple versions on YouTube, and like one of them, it was cut weird. It was horrible, frankly. The way it was, like somebody had messed with the editing, and the music was changed. Everything that was like somebody had hacked it or stolen it and repurposed it, because it was bad. But if you can find the actual movie, it's a sweet little film. It's not Rambo, right? Not Rambo, but it had the sheriff. And so Brian Denton, he's in it. And there's a place where the church burns down, and we have to rebuild the church in a barn in one day, or we're going to lose our charter and not be able to be a church anymore. So it's a big deal. And I was partly responsible for not paying the dues on the insurance. So we couldn't afford to get the thing paid off. I was a treasurer. So I have to admit, as they're all getting around deciding to try to build this thing in a day, that it's eating me up inside, because I realize I'm responsible, and I'm a real sort of egomaniac guy, so I don't want to take any kind of responsibility. So anyways, as we're kind of preparing for it, before we were shooting this scene, Brian Denny, he's talking to me, and he looks at me, he says, this is a part where you really have to understand what's happened to you. And he grabs me by the lapels and said, and feel it, because it's eating you up. And he's like grabbing me by the lapels and just kind of manhandling. He was a big guy. And afterwards, we're getting ready to go do this thing. Well, the director, Brent Huff, who's been on Brad Son Has Issues, if you guys remember him, the director, he came up to me, he said, listen, I got to apologize. He should never have done that. He's an actor. He has no right to impose upon you. And I said, Brent, that was like the greatest day of my life. The sheriff of Rambo, the guy that was in Cocoon, the guy that was a bartender in 10, just grabbed me, and what else was he in? Silverado. Just grabbed me and just shook me around, actor to actor. It was amazing. So I love that process of just the brute, organic, become that person, make this real, watch people are watching it and say, this is real. I'm watching reality. I'm not watching people act. I'm peering in on a reality of something that's happening, and I get to observe it. And then it's real. You're not acting. You are simply watching a life unfold like a reality show, except for it's pretend. And the woman that you were about to listen to, Wyatt, if we can wrap this segment up, her name's Cindy Bond, and she's an old friend and an amazing producer. And she's going to talk to you about how do you make movies? How do you make the faith-based movies? How do we decide which one should be faith-based? What about I Can Only Imagine, one of the top grossing faith films in history? She was the spearhead of that. It was her idea. She's going to tell you how she thought of it. Got Bart Millard from Mercy Me, who wrote I Can Only Imagine, the most famous Christian pop song in history, crossed over, went onto a secular radio. That's virtually never happens, Christian to secular. And she thought of this idea and built this thing, and then it hit a home run. I was so grateful for her because, you know, you try to get that brass ring, and everybody that makes a movie thinks they're making the next Oscar-winning film, and she did it. She nailed it. She did this great success. So we're going to talk about that. If you like film, if you like acting, if you like production, if you've been in production, if you've ever made movies, you're going to get the behind the scenes. How does this work? What's it all about? And she's a woman of great talent, great aptitude, and she's going to tell you her story. She's a great person. Folks, remember, and this is so important, if you are new, go to bradstine.com right now. Join the Militia of the Mind. It's free. It just gives me your email. We're building a giant list so you can get my newsletters. But also, if you want to become part of the Mighty 10,000, it's $3 a month. It's $36. You're in for a year. You get all my back catalog of my comedy. You get special guest answers, just like Cindy's about to give an answer that you don't get unless you get to be on the Mighty 10,000. You're going to hear this answer. And join us. Let's become 10,000 Christians committed to being disciples for Christ throughout this earth. And we do it through the internet, but also live events coming out to see me. I was just in Missoula, Montana over the weekend, performed Crosspoint Church. It was amazing, great time. And also in Stevensville, Montana, with some great Pastor Brad Rhoda and his church. It was amazing, great turnout in a little tiny part of Montana. I was going to say Minnesota. I don't know why. And so it was a wonderful time had by all. And why we have a big giant commercial on that apparently is unskippable. So hang on.
I told
by
you.
By the way,
when
the commercial comes on, can they hear me talking over it?
No, but we're not losing anything.
Okay.
Once the ad ends, it'll just restart.
But if I'm talking during the ad, they don't hear me. But it's being recorded.
They will hear you because this is still getting recorded, but it doesn't happen until after the ad tap.
So are they behind a few steps then?
So basically, think of it as though YouTube injects the ad in between when it starts and when it ends into the video. So everything is still being said. It's just going to take a while.
Fine.
And I told you those 20-second unskippable ads existed.
Well, at least they're not the Ashley Haas 1 hour ads.
Or my 1.5 hour pirated movie ads.
Which, by the way, you enjoyed because it was a pretty funny movie.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, of course it was.
Wasn't good as Lego Batman, but hey.
Honestly.
Well, son, I can't wait for my people, those guys out there who show up every Monday night. We are growing, guys. Believe it or not, we're growing. The live, shows, it's just the loyal people that want to come in on a Monday night and jump in, but the rest people watch afterwards. It is growing on Salem Network. We are starting to try to find some sponsors for this thing. So you have created this monster, and off we go. So grateful you show up. Grateful you're here with us. You're going to love this interview. Maybe Cindy will show up. As you've seen, I've tried to get some of the guests to come in and say hi, and you can talk to them. It doesn't always happen. Very few podcasts give you that option. She may not show up. She's in California. But if not, enjoy this interview. If you love filmmaking and you happen to be a person of faith and wondered about faith films, this is going to be the interview for you. One of the most famous movies ever made in faith, Bart Millard, who was a guest on Brad Stine Has Issues, and it was his story. And now we're going to talk to that person and everything else about her. She's a wonderful woman of God and talented as it gets. Hey, I'll shut up and let you be the judge. Welcome, Cindy Bond. The person that I'm bringing on is someone I've known for many, many years. We're kind of friends. I mean, I don't want to presume. It's not like we hang out or have cigars, but we've known each other, and I think we kind of had a mutual respect because we see the value in not only what we do specifically, but the talent behind it, especially because it's faith-based. And unfortunately, that has not always had the best reputation for the highest quality of product. And that's a disgrace. That shouldn't be. I don't think that I should try as a faith-based Christian to say, hey, I'm trying to do it as well as the mainstream. I think they should look at us and go, how do you guys do it so well? Because that's used to be our legacy, was the Sistine Chapel. That's what it used to mean to say, let me show you what we do when we do art. And so the woman that I'm about to bring in is a producer. She's I think the founder, but definitely the CEO of Mission Pictures. So it's a producer, it's a distributor, it's somebody that basically takes films and gets it into the marketplace. But the films she's chosen, and one that was a big brass ring home run for her, was I Can Only Imagine. And we've had Bart Millard has been on the podcast, but she's the one that really helped get that happening. And it was a home run. And I was so grateful when it was happening because everybody was blown away. So we're going to talk about that, but also just the role of a producer, a Christian, a woman in this art form, and just what does it mean moving forward in this era in America. So please, without further ado, welcome my old friend and someone who's much more successful in film than me, Cindy Bond. How do you do, my friend?
Hi, Brad. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. I'm grateful that you had time to be with me because, you know, you're one of them Hollywood folk.
Oh, yeah. Just, I don't know how I fit you in.
I'm so shocked, especially between bites of caviar and the yacht.
Yeah, lifestyles of the rich and useless. Famous and useless.
Well, listen, when we first met, I'm trying to think of where it was. I don't know if it would have been at an NRB. I don't know if it would have been at
Yeah.
that there was a variety gathering gala
Yep.
when I was in Persecuted. I think you might have been at that. I don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I
But
think
we
a bunch of them. So it could have been when ICRS, International Christian Retail Show, or NRB, or one of the, Variety had a couple summits where we had, it was great to see.
no, it was.
Back.
And well, for the fact that Variety, which I don't think I'm not thinking leans too conservative, but yet they were giving a platform to faith-based at that time, a particular film I was involved with. I was an actor, but maybe in the genre in general, I don't know. But nevertheless, there we were. But at that time, we had talked about maybe finding some projects to do together. We're always looking around to as creators to see what's out there and what makes sense. But before we do that, I really kind of want to introduce people. I kind of introduced you, obviously, superficially, but tell me a little bit, if to my people who don't oftentimes see people like you, because you're on the other side of the camera,
Right.
a little bit about who you are, how you got into producing, and just what interested you about it, and perhaps how you landed in faith-based, if that was always your goal, or maybe you were always a Christian and you wanted it that way, or maybe you were doing it mainstream and then suddenly you realized this was an untouched market. Tell us a little bit about how you became to be the Cindy Bond, the juggernaut.
Well, I married into the name Bond, which was great. My husband actually is an actor. He's a retired actor. I mean, he'll do a part here and there, but best known for being on General Hospital for about 4 years. So he was a big soap star in the 80s and then went on to another soap after that. I was born and raised in Sacramento, raised by my grandparents, and that was a real blessing. Tough to be the child of a broken family. My parents divorced when I was very young, but my grandparents were very, very strong Christians, and my grandmother particularly was a huge movie buff. I mean, she watched every single movie out there, but she always loved inspirational and, let's call it, biblical worldview type pictures. So she loved DeMille and she loved Rodgers and Hammerstein. So I literally was raised, and these were older movies because obviously my grandmother, but I mean, you know, she came out of the era, the great generation, where there were values in movies and there was a biblical worldview wasn't apologized for, that Hollywood would put out. I mean, 10 Commandments and Ben-Hur and The Robe and all these epic films. And then of course things changed. But for me, and that's how I was raised. And then I actually became a Christian at 7 at a Billy Graham crusade. And then at 12, I literally dedicated my life to Christ at a church camp near Yosemite, which is near where I grew up in Northern Cal.
In the park, in Yosemite, in the park, or?
Yeah, there was a camp. It was called Calvin Crest, and it was.
I was just there. I was just in Yosemite a month or two
Yeah.
ago, and
So
there was a
good.
little church on the park ground. I don't know if that was what you were involved with, but anyways, it was the first time I was ever in Yosemite, so that's why I was curious, because holy smoke, talk
Yeah.
about God's
Yeah.
creation.
Yeah, no kidding. But holy smoke, they've had a lot of big fires up there. So I wasn't sure you're meaning that literally, because I mean, last time I was up there, I mean, they'd had a huge fire, but the camp was saved. I mean, it was interesting. And I drove by there it was really a great moment to look and say, here's where I accepted Christ as my personal savior. It was an amazing moment. Yeah, no, grew up in Sacramento. And then I was really involved in sports. So I was very competitive. I was I grew up in a little area of Sacramento where it was the suburban area, and my friends were all boys. And so I was always competing against the guys. And at that time in sports, so whether soccer or whatever, baseball, whatever it was, I was very competitive. And so, but what I did was I took up the game of golf at the age of 10. And so I went full steam down the road because golf was a very challenging game. And so I went down that road, and I played golf all through my teenage years and ended up getting a golf scholarship to a number of universities. Actually got one to Stanford, and then I transferred down to San Diego.
Holy smoke.
Yeah, golf.
If you had got a golf scholarship.
Not my grades. It wasn't my grades.
If you got a golf scholarship offer to Stanford, you are a great golfer.
I was okay back in the day. I was a 2, and then eventually became a scratch. And so I went to San Diego State University. I love the weather. And then that was the trajectory I was on. And I was modeling in conjunction with the golf and things like that, and being coached. And I'm actually moved up to LA during that time. And I was coached by this incredible golf coach, given a complimentary membership to Riviera Country Club. It was an amazing country club. And so that's what I thought I was going to do. So much for the plans that we have set out for ourselves, right? But God had other plans. So I was playing golf, and I actually, believe it or not, was sponsored by Dean Martin, I mean, from the Rat Pack. That was crazy to say. He actually was a member there, and he sponsored about 3 or 4 of us to get on the professional tour. So I was one of those that I just used to go on the golf cart and play golf with Dean and some other movie stars and studio heads. Little did I know that I would make that transition. So it was during the golfing days that I met my husband, and we had a deal that I wouldn't act and he wouldn't golf, but we fell in love. I broke the deal, so I went into acting class, and I spent about 4 years in class, which was great because I learned a lot about the creative side of showbiz.
So I don't want to stop your momentum here, but so you were on the professional PGA Women's Tour?
No, I never went to qualifying school. I just a little bit on the mini tour, but the plan was to go to qualifying school. That was my dream.
I got you. Okay.
But during that time, I mean, I really believe that God gives you the desires of your heart. So during that time, my desires were changing because of my faith and the fact I fell in love and then got married. And so I actually went into acting class and thinking, oh, well, you know, this is, I was drawn.
Why were you suddenly thinking acting?
I was drawn to the arts. I was drawn to media because I'd just grown up with it. Movies were such a big part of my life that I was definitely drawn to that. And so it was funny because I went into acting class, and I mean, I was in the class with a lot of future famous people, from Patrick Swayze to George Clooney to a number of others. I learned quickly that I was there for a purpose, not for the one I thought. So I studied under this, I think he was an Oscar nominated coach, and I learned a tremendous amount in 4 years. But it was during that time that I was doing some theater, and just small theater, 99 seat, what we call equity waiver. And a producer fell out of the play I was in. Everybody was panicking because we're 2 weeks out from opening night. And I said, well, no worries. I'll step up and I'll produce the play. And I have no idea what I was doing. And actually before that, for a period of time, I'd worked at Wells Fargo Bank. So numbers and all that were very comfortable for me. But it just segued into producing a play, and it worked really well. And the second I did that, I realized, aha, this is where I want to be. Yeah. And it was just from there. And then my husband was doing a movie, and the producer and I became good friends, and he was my first mentor. I'm a big believer in having mentors to sip greatness off of others and learn as much as you can, lifelong student. So yeah, we became partners, and then I learned a lot from him. Went off and produced my first picture, which was actually a movie of the week for Lifetime. And it was a thriller, just a true story. Wasn't what I wanted to do. And then I was sitting in Hollywood thinking, I grew up, I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, and I'm not seeing any content out there and this is early 90s. And I'm not seeing any movies that reflect my faith and my values. And what's going on in Hollywood? Where did the Hollywood go that I grew up with? It was gone. And that was really, God seeded those desires in my heart. So I went forward. I started actually working with Campus Crusade for Christ at that time. The idea of putting together a film fund. And it was through that relationship that I met my first investor, a guy named Norm Miller, chairman of Interstate Batteries. So yeah, so Norm and he backed me in a company. I'd actually just before that had $1 million deal happen at Paramount Pictures, which was pretty cool. It was a book that was written for the Christian world, but was action and adventure. I represented a number of these books and took them into a big agency in Hollywood and packaged in Bruce Willis and Paramount Pictures, and I was going to produce it, and then the thing fell apart. But that's what I had going on when I met my first investor. And then he backed me, and we started a company called Norann Entertainment. And we produced a movie starring Martin Landau, who just come off the Oscar for Ed Wood with Johnny Depp. We just got out there as modern day pioneers. There were just a small group of us and had no idea. I mean, really, and wanted to make a film that would be at that time within a biblical worldview. But what we did there was we did something called, we made a tweener, or a feathered fish, we like to call it, which means it either was too Christian for the mainstream or too secular for the Christian market. So it was a movie called The Joyriders, which is actually a great movie and would do really well today. But back then it was a little too edgy for the Christian market, and it was a little too Christian for the mainstream. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to have to get into that big time because oh my gosh. This frustration as artists, as believers and artists trying to do things creatively and sophisticated, and the roadblocks and the parameters that are set up by the audience that we need to buy tickets to facilitate this, and yet being discounted and ignored and almost cast aside by more of a mainstream audience to look at our work as being so childish and immature. And so you really are stuck with boundaries that I don't think were ever designed to allow art to flourish. It has to kind of, and it's tricky because we're believers and we know there are moral parameters. So I'm not sitting there saying, we should breach certain decorums and so forth that we feel would just be immoral and so forth. And we certainly have precedent for that. If you talked about your grandmother introducing you to film and the great works of art, and of course, as you mentioned, The Robe or the different biblical films, Greatest Story Ever Told, whatever. And these are all big money makers. They all did quite well at the box office. They made it worth the investment because there was a payoff. It is a business, show business. And so that was valuable. Even mainstream, more secular driven films they still had a moral usually to them. They still had a right and wrong, a black and white. If there was a sexual element to it, the man swept her up and they walked into the room and shut the door. I don't have to watch you having sex. I get it. I understand what you're doing. I can figure that out. They just didn't feel that they had to exploit or abuse that element. It's like, how about we just really become more artistic and more creative? And in some ways, it's because the Hays Code kept it that way. Sometimes it makes you better at something when you don't. It's like having a low budget film. When you learn how to make a really good low budget film, you're probably going to make an epic high budget film because you learned how to spend money properly. You don't waste it. So here's the first thing we're going to do for my people watching. You're going to help them understand a little bit of the technical jargon of our people, just so they can understand the differences, because it'll help them understand what you do specifically, but also for them to understand stuff that perhaps they never knew. So let's start with what the titles mean. So executive producer, for the most part, and you can fill in the blanks, means they paid for it. They're the guys that basically said, here's your money, go off and make your thing, and I trust that you guys will do it well. Would that be a proper definition of executive producer, or is there other elements to that?
There are other elements. So that would be a way that someone would get an executive producer credit. Other ways that they would get that type of credit would be, let's say they're a manager. You get a famous actor and the manager might be part of the package and they help. And obviously talent is a huge part of this. So let's say you're working with a manager and they can get you the actor, and look, you want the actor. Well, it's good to have the manager on board sometimes. So that'll happen. And a lot of times we'll give executive producer credit out to other professionals who have helped you get the picture made in some way, shape, or form, substantively though.
So does the executive producer then, so let's take like maybe a classic example, I would just off the top of my head, maybe I'm wrong, Colonel Parker and Elvis. So Colonel Parker was very good at sticking himself into the mix to make money when he didn't belong there. He was a one-trick pony. He got Elvis, and that's all he did. But he was really good at making everybody pay for everything that was done. I don't know if he went this far, but I know that certain actors have reached such a status that they get paid just to read the script. I thought I heard once that Nicholson got like $500,000 just to read the script. You give me 500 grand, I'll read it. May not do it. And when you've reached that kind of status, when you make that, when your name above the marquee will drive that kind of ticketing, you can do whatever you want. Very few people get there. That's a super elite class, but they exist. Tom Cruise's, guys that have proven box office, they can kind of write their own ticket. So the executive producer does basically have to pony up the dough, but you're saying also that if they have been able to accomplish certain elements to allow this picture to reach a certain status, for example, they provided a A-list actor that you couldn't have gotten, they get this title. Is the title enough, or does it also mean they get residuals back end for being an executive producer, and that's the other reason people want the title?
I've had a situation where I gave, let's say, a manager an executive producer credit, and it was because they delivered talent for me, but there wasn't anything else that was done, and that person got a fee. It's like I said, normally the investors or financiers of the movie, sometimes an investor who's put in a lot of money, let's say a pretty good percentage of a budget, will actually get producer credit, full producer credit. Once in a while, that will happen. I mean, look, I was going to say in the independent world, and I'm really talking about the independent world mostly here, because it's so hard to get a movie made that you do whatever you can in terms of relationship capital that you capitalize on. And investors, and the relationship capital could be investors or actors or directors that but you do scrape and do everything you can to bring a team together to get the backing, get the money to make a picture. And so credit, I've never been so hung up on credits. I don't like to have a lot of credits on a film, but look, if somebody's bringing some money in and it takes 10 people to fund a movie, I'm going to give out 10 credits. I mean,
but what I guess what I'm trying to get at though, Cindy, is, okay, so what's the value to the credit? Is it an ego thing, or I always assumed it was because you got paid for that. If I decided to give you a producer credit, and I've had a couple, because but here's I've always saw the producer, which is kind of what you are mainly, I think, is the really You're the mechanic that literally put all the pieces that you found the money, you found the actors, you found the script, you found the DP, you found you kind of organize all the machinery together so that there's something here to begin the process of making a film. That's the producer. You produce the product, and there's a lot of moving parts there. You usually get paid for that, either a particular fee. I guess you could do a buyout and just say, here's your money. Thank you so much. But usually you want back end royalties because it's a possibility you could make a ton of money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is there people that just want the credit and you say you're not going to make any dough, but you get to go around saying, I'm an executive producer? I mean, is there value maybe in leveraging that, maybe because it might allow you to get into another movie, or it gives you more credibility? Like, look what I've done. That movie's done well. And look, I'm a producer on that. So see, I've got credibility. So tell us more about where the producer shows up.
Yeah, I mean, the credits, whether, I mean, you're right. I mean, if you're produced by, I mean, I like to equate it to a parent. You know, you're birthing a baby, and then you're raising this baby up, and then eventually the baby goes off, becomes an adult and goes off to, as we say, will either go, won't go to college, might go to community college, might go to an Ivy League. It depends on how well they do. I like to equate that to movies too. A lot of producers that make movies, for a lot of them think that their baby is going to eventually go to an Ivy League school when they really should be in community college. And what I equate that to is distribution. So a lot of producers will think that their film's the best thing that's ever been made and have unreal expectations about it. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because a producer has to be the one that's super passionate and believes the best, hopes for the best, pushing it as much and as strongly as possible. So, I mean, but the full producer, the main producer, is that parent. I mean, and that would take it from the absolute beginning. Could be an idea, could be a book, could be a magazine article, could be just a script that comes in that is completely fiction. And then literally a lot of times we'll do some development work within the script with the writer, because very random it's highly rare that a script will walk in the door that's so good that you're saying, look, I'm going to just go out and put the funding together for this. So we'll develop the screenplays, or we'll actually develop them from scratch, because I'll get the rights to a book and then we have to adapt. But then once you have that script, to me, that's the fountain from which all things spring forth. And I also equate it to a biblical scripture about that you build your house on the rock, because when the storms come, you want to withstand the storms, and tons of storms come along when you're making a movie. So that screenplay needs to be, I mean, as good as it can possibly be. One you mentioned about, and I agree with you, the lack of quality that we've seen through the years. It hasn't been for a lack of, I believe, motives and intentions being wrong. I think they've all been really great in terms of the faith-based film world to get God's word out through the media into hearts and minds. It's just been, I think, the lack of understanding and knowledge of actually just making a movie, so that these screenplays have not been as good as they should be. A lot more work will have needed to have gone into them. And I think that's a big part of the breakdown, and then getting an experienced team. I mean, so there's a lot there to unpack.
So would you say, maybe there is no true answer to this, but I'm just curious. So would you say a great, magnificent script can overcome less quality actors in production? Or
No.
if they're great actors, can they make a marginal script rise to the occasion? I know they both should be great. I get that. But if one or the other had to suffer, what is going to be more telling, a crappier script or a crappier action and production team, actors and production?
I mean, it goes part and parcel. I mean, I don't believe a good movie is ever made off of a poor script. That's your roadmap. That's your blueprint. It's like building a building or building a house. How do you build a house if your plans are flawed?
Yeah.
I think that's how important it is. And then what happens when you have a really solid screenplay? I don't know about magnificent. We all try for magnificent. I don't know how often that happens, but we do the best we can to have as good of a screenplay as we do. But that screenplay is so important because that's what's going to draw in your director.
Okay.
And then if you get a really wonderful director because they gravitate to, this is a great story, this is a unique story, this is a story that I could see has a big audience, or they know who maybe the audience would be. What, it could be more art house, could be more commercial, but then that's what's going to draw your director. Sometimes directors come on board just because you have a great story and they'll develop the script with you. But let's just go say you have the really terrific script, but then you get that director. Well, then that director is what we call actor bait, because that director is who actors look towards. That's obviously the script and who's directing are key elements that will, you know, get them to want to come on board a picture.
Yeah. Well,
that director means a huge amount.
I've been in, I don't know, I think 23 or 24 films, enough to kind of have a little bit of an understanding of how the game works. And from the inside, I've been a producer-ish. I have written virtually on every film I have ever been in. I have rewritten entire monologues for my character. I have rewritten endings to films because they were weak and they thought I suddenly put something together and they said, "You're pretty good. Can you help us with?" But the point I was trying, and I've never been given writer credit, by the way, but
that happens.
Yeah, and it would have been more like a punch-up guy anyways. I mean, that, you know, like you said, you can take a great script, but you go find that guy that can kind of really fill in the weak points and whatever. And that's a specialized craft. I guess what I was getting at, Cindy, was that I've never been in a movie where the script, and I know they exist, but where the script was word for word. The directors that everyone I've been with a few, have been very open to allowing the actor to experiment and to explore, because even if the script's great, if you've got a really good actor, their instinct about who they are and the moment that they're creating, they're trying to make real, they're not trying to act. People don't understand that. If you're saying that guy's acting really good, he's not, because it shouldn't be me watching you and going, "Wow, he can really pretend to be that guy." It should be like I'm looking through the window into somebody's house and watching them just behave. That's what acting is. You're not acting. I'm watching a reality take place. I'm at the bus stop watching people. That's truth. That's what you're supposed to create in a film. And so an actor will suddenly, and it's what I love about acting. It's so organic. You suddenly, a new idea happens, or you say something that was nowhere in the script, or something, or an action takes place, or I grab you and that wasn't there, and everybody has to deal with that. And suddenly, this incredible moment is happening out of the blue that you go, "What was that?" And it's so acting is such a unique art form. It's so unique in that you have words, but then you allow those words to create their own texture and momentum that you didn't know was going to come. I don't know how to explain it to anybody unless you've been in that room doing that thing. And as a producer who's sitting there watching it take place, when that magic happens, you're like, "Oh my, this is amazing. What is that? What is that magic?"
Yeah, well, here's the thing. What I've spoken about up to this point is the process that we go through as producers to get the movie made, right? This is before we're casting actors. Okay. So that's why I'm saying, as a producer, to be able to attract a director and investment, which investment could certainly come well before you ever have your director on board. It can happen any number of ways. But this is well before we cast actors on the production. We do want the scripts to be as good as possible for, obviously, like I said, to get them funded, to get a great director on board. Okay, now, like you're talking about, now we're making the movie. Absolutely. I mean, remember, as we know, when we write a script, these are characters that could be completely fictionalized. I mean, or it could be a true story, and there's a person that may be famous we have to think about because they're so famous that, I'm going to take this, like you said, Elvis with the Baz Luhrmann. I mean, who doesn't know Elvis? And now he cast Austin Butler, which I thought was fantastic. And he really got his persona. So you had to be very mindful of that. Or it could be a movie where it isn't about someone that was well known, even though it was a true story. So there's a lot more creative license that could be taken in the casting. But when we get into production and we've cast our actors, absolutely. Now those words that were on the page need to come out of an actor's mouth. And I love when actors come in there, make it their own. When we oftentimes we'll do a table read, right? And we'll start to hear the script. Now that's when we hear the script being read out loud in actors' mouths, come the words coming out of their mouths, and it comes to life. And I mean, I never expect anything to be word for word out of an actor's mouth. I want the actor to bring something to the table, and they always do, and make it their own, make that character their own. So that's oftentimes when we have our writers there on set. And obviously, you've done that yourself, where a lot of rewriting is going on because, I mean, look, every scene has an event. Every word, every scene has to have a purpose and to drive the narrative forward. So, and as long as we're in those parameters, then there's a lot of latitude, a lot of freedom.
And it's fun. It's so fun. It's certainly not for everybody. Not everybody can act. Not everybody can do that.
Not me. I was fine.
Well,
I want to be in front of the camera.
You did or you didn't?
No, I was happy. No, I was not happy in front of the camera. Minute I went behind, that was my place.
Well, and so what? I mean, it's not for everybody, and not everybody can play piano like Mozart. Everybody has their skill set, and the most important thing, Cindy, is finding what you're good at, because then you're going to be helpful to the whole situation. You're going to bring something that they need. I've always thought like a producer whenever I've done a project, and I think it's because I'm a stand-up comic. So my whole life, and before that, I was a sleight of hand magician professionally there in California, in Southern California, for many years. So I've always had to be an entrepreneur. I always had to be creative because I was by myself. I did in comedy, if you think of stand-up comedy, you're everything. I'm the director, I'm the writer, I'm the actor, I'm the producer. I write the script, I deliver the script, I have to go find the money, in other words, the venue that will hire me. So you have to learn to kind of take all the moving parts and make a machine that fits. And so I've always thought like that. I've had no option. I've had to figure out how to make all this work because nobody was doing it for me. And so I think when I started getting into film, I just thought like that. And so much of film and arts in general, I think, is community, is database. It's knowing all these different eclectic people. And you go, hey, I know a guy that could help you because what are you doing? Well, it's a scuba dive. Okay, this guy scuba dive for treasure, and I happen to know him. Let's bring him in because he can teach. And suddenly you just pick from all this old school terminology, Rolodex, of people you knew that could come and assist in making this more authentic or making it more robust. And next thing you know, you're making a movie because you're putting all the pieces together. Well, let's talk about some of the movies that you have created. So when you get a script, you said, I want it to be a great script. But here's the problem with movies. It's like you said, everybody thinks their script is the next Oscar. Obviously, if you're trying to make a movie, you think you have something worth making, unless you're, Roger Corman and you've learned a routine about how to do something for a certain amount of budget that will allow you to make a return. And it's simply a machine that you've learned how to create. But if you're really trying to make something that you think has some legs, that might go somewhere and stand the test of time and be looked at as a nice project, you have to not only see the quality in the writing, but you have to kind of perceive that the audience out there, the buying public, is going to like this. They're going to be intrigued by this. And there's so many different genres. I mean, Cindy, go on Netflix, go on Amazon Prime. There are so many movies that have been made in history. And if you're in the business like you and I are, I'm sure you've done this more than me. You watch certain movies going, how did they get money for this? It's like, my movie was better. They got funded? That should have been my prize. That's crap. I mean, how did you do that? So how did you find that guy? But so here you are, someone who's actually done it, who actually is responsible to find the money for the project, and you've done it. So you're obviously good at it. I'm sure you've had times when it's kind of like, oh, okay, maybe that was a glitch. But for the most part, because it's such, movie making is the most ridiculous. I mean, I shouldn't even say this on this, but talk about a roll of the dice. If you're putting money into this thing, you got to
Oh
really
yeah, yeah,
be ideologically involved in this thing. Because if you're going into movie making
yeah,
thinking it's going to make me $1 million, you're crazy.
yeah. It's high risk.
This is a high risk stock that you are about to invest in. So you better be willing to lose this money than to think this is a guarantee, because there's no shot. But so how do you go about, somebody comes to you, and I'm sure you get unsolicited scripts and you probably don't even read them. I think there's probably some kind of legal
Yeah,
ramification.
you can't legally.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't legally. Yeah, that's unfortunate because I really like treating others the way I want to be treated, and I got a soft heart. But legally, you just can't. It can
So
be
if
a
somebody
bad
starts
thing.
sending you unsolicited stuff and they think you're being mean, it's like, I can't read this because then I don't know, there's some, or they can sue you and say you stole my idea. Anyways, it just protects you from, you know,
Yeah.
somebody accusing you of stealing their film. But anyways, what I wanted to get at was, so you get a script or whatever. How do you decide?
Mhm.
What is it that has to grab you? And is it your personal taste? Because I'm sure that's part of it, but you also have to make an assessment that this has some reach to a demographic that
Mhm.
will spend money to come see this. So you have a lot you have to decide. I'm going to put, because you only have so much money and so much opportunity to do this. So you have to finally choose, this is the guy. What is that magic potion that makes you go, this is the one I'm going to go for now?
Mhm. Well, it'll be for me many things. I look at the worldview of I look at the story as a whole and think about, and like you said, a personal taste. I mean, is this something that I want to see? Is this something that is giving me, do I have a heart connection to this? Do I care about these characters? Do I care about the story? I mean, it is personal, the first thing that happens. I mean, I have to be really drawn and into the story, into the characters, and really have a heart connection, I need to have that emotional connection, because if you don't have an emotional connection to characters that inside a story, even though the story itself might be good, but you don't care about these characters, you're not going to care what happens to them, and you're going to be out. You're not going to watch the movie. So, I mean, you'll see there have been a lot of movies made with hardly any production values, but maybe it's just a character-driven drama, but these characters are so well developed, so multifaceted, so interesting that you really develop that connection to these characters so that you really care what happens to them in their journey. And so there will be those movies, and maybe they don't have a big audience. What drives me is that I really truly have wanted to make a difference in the entire world through the media, because I do believe firmly and fully that we've had a sight and sound generation. This is now multiple generations since the birth of media, and it has shaped and shifted culture massively. And so I'm a big believer that I've wanted and I have done for many years to use the gifting that God's given me to be able to put movies and television out into the world that will make a positive difference and a kingdom difference in people's lives, to plant seeds, to get them to think, to inspire them, to give them stories and characters that they can maybe aspire to be. Or like, for example, my last movie, Redeeming Love, was such an important film for me. It's a book that was published 30 years ago. And it was a very, very difficult movie to make. And the book's edgy. And finally had the author, Francine Rivers, trusted me with the rights, and she wrote the screenplay. And then when I brought the director in, he worked with Francine. But I mean, for example, a movie like that was such an important movie in the lives of women. And of course, I think I mean, look, women still make the majority of the media buying decisions for the household. So I think I've had an upper hand in that, being a female, being the target audience, raised up on these movies, and then seeing Hollywood. I looked at Hollywood and said, look, Hollywood, you're not making these movies anymore. And I saw this huge opportunity in the marketplace, which I think is important. So in any event, I really feel that
But do you
there's
think
a
that,
mantle responsibility on us to make something that has value. But like you said, how do I decide? That those are factors, but other factors are, I don't want to make an expensive home movie. I don't just want to make it a movie for an audience of one. And that's happened to everybody. I mean, the biggest filmmakers in the world have had flops. It's not a surefire thing. But I really do prayerfully seek the stories that I want, and I look at them and say, is this unique? Why this movie? Why this story? Why now? Who's the audience? But again, it has to be, I have to have that connection. I have to be super passionate about it. I mean, I'll see really great scripts come across my desk. I'll see great actors and directors, but I won't be passionate about it. And if I'm not passionate, as a producer, I can't sign on. I have to have that. So does that answer your question?
well, I'll give you credit if you can really do that, because I'm guessing that people have brought you a fully financed opportunity. And if you could look at that and go, you know what, man, it's green lit, I got the money, but I don't think I like this. No, there's one thing if it's against your values, if you feel like it's sort of dark or anti-Christian or whatever, that's a kind of a no-brainer. But what if it's just kind of casually compromises this over here and casually compromises this over there, and it's okay and it's not perfect, but you know what? It's all right, and it'll probably make some money. So for you, so basically, is every choice that you commit to does it have to be faith-based? Let's start there, because I think that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. What I was alluding to earlier was that, to me, all truth is God's truth. Let's start there. And virtually every story ever made or written, every one, is God's story, because there's a good guy, a bad guy, and in the end there's redemption, and there's a hero who takes on the evil and overcomes it. And that story, it has been retold a trillion times. It's the story of humanity.
Mhm.
So in some respects, so if you're talking about faith-based films, let's put it like that, which is a very specific genre and title. But here's the truth.
Mhm.
Some of the greatest faith-based films were not produced by Christians. Matter of fact, one of them won an
That's
Oscar for
right.
Best Picture.
Chariots of Fire.
Chariots of
Chariots
Fire
of
was
Fire.
produced by an
Dodie
atheist.
Fayed.
Yeah. And by the way, great
Yeah.
movie.
Dodie
Great movie.
Fayed.
So,
Incredible movie. Yeah.
so here was a guy that was basically
Yeah.
just saw a great story. And so he was smart enough to go, there's a story here I want to tell. And he did, and won Best Picture. So, but if you think about It's a Wonderful Life, even though it's more fantasy-ish with the angel and whatnot, but it's very Christian. Lord of the Rings is all Christian allegory. When you say faith-based, I'm guessing it doesn't have to have Jesus 14 times in it. It doesn't have to have a Bible. It doesn't have to have a pastor necessarily. And this is what has happened. This sort of formulaic faith-based film that becomes so boring to me. And I'm a Christian, but I'm not it. I would rather see. So do you consider faith-based more about the morality of the story or the redemptive quality of the story than how many times Jesus is alluded to or the Bible's brought out?
For me, faith-based, it's about the worldview. I think if it's biblical worldview, but then in the industry, faith-based, when we say that, now that terminology has evolved a lot. Faith-friendly, faith-light, I mean, it's really evolved a lot. If it's overt and it's telling with a faith message, it will get that faith-based label onto it. But I don't just do faith-based films. I will do films that will be, like you said, good triumphs over evil. I mean, I've gone on as an exec producer where I've seen something that was in a movie that was it was an edgy movie, but there was a strong element of redemption. Like, for example, Dead Man Walking. I mean, that was an incredible movie. I mean, there have been, like you said, to your point, a number of films that have been made. I don't know that there was a Christian that was on the producerial side that were absolutely biblical worldview and did incredible. I mean, you look at Prince of Egypt, animated, that Spielberg did. I mean, that movie did incredibly well. And Narnia, look at all the Narnia movies. And there are a lot of, I mean, again, Christian allegory, and a lot of people didn't even know Aslan was God. I mean,
Yeah.
so to me, I think I'm so excited about where we are in the industry right now, because the whole entire industry, it's just completely opened up in terms of the opportunities to make films that have a biblical worldview, but explore a lot of different genres, because you mentioned that. And I think that, for example, Bart Millard and I are working together on a number of projects. And I think comedy is actually one of the most underserved areas in terms of film and television within a biblical worldview.
Oh my God, it's
right.
ignored.
And I think that's an emerging market. It's
Well,
so ignored, but that's the opportunity. And I
No,
think, yeah,
indeed. The problem definitely you're right. It's been ignored because I got to be honest, it's probably the single most difficult genre to write for. Comedy is really hard to do well. To not come across corny, to not come across silly or foolish, or unless you're just going over the top like Airplane or something where you're allowing it to be silly enough that it really becomes funny. But to write something comedic that is solid, it's hard to do. And then you got to get comedy actors that can pull it off. But certainly in the faith-based genre, it can't, I don't think it gets any more rare than that. Well, let's talk about Bart Millard, because I've known him for quite a few years. We met through concerts over the years, as me being a Christian comic and him being, of course, a lead singer of Mercy Me, and wrote the most famous, popular, successful song, contemporary Christian song in history, I can only imagine. And that was kind of an ode to his father, I think, or at least stimulated the song. And it is an amazing song. It is an amazing song.
yes.
He hit a gold mine, and nobody knows how. Nobody knows how to write a hit song. Everybody thinks it's a hit, but then why did that one work and that one didn't? Nobody knows how to make an Oscar-winning movie. We think this script is Oscar-winning. We thought that one was. And sometimes you hear the opposite. People said, I had no idea this
Right.
was going to blow up. I didn't know how. I don't know what happened. I'm grateful, but I didn't really do anything different. I don't know what happened. But I was
Yeah.
I remember when I Can Only Imagine came out, and it just, you knew immediately with the weekend box office, okay, they did it. Oh, they did it. It's blowing up. I was so excited for you, Cindy, because I knew how hard it was to do this stuff. I knew
It was
how
a hard one.
and how difficult it is to ever get whole in a film, in an investment, or and especially or let alone make a profit and get everybody paid back and so forth and so on. And I know that I'm sure you had many, disappointments along the way, because you're in a very volatile business. And when that thing was just blowing up for you, I just pictured you. And I don't know why. It's not like we're close friends, but I just, from my interactions with you, well, and what I'm getting at is my interactions with you have been fleeting, but we just kind of admire each other, I guess, and as Christians
Oh
for
yeah,
one thing.
100%.
But we
Absolutely,
just know each
absolutely.
other has a skill and a talent that we appreciate, right? But so I just felt like this woman has worked so hard and has been so invested in the kingdom in this regard. And this thing, it's like she gets to say, I did it. This is what we've been waiting. Every movie I made, this is what I was shooting for. And this time it happened. I was so grateful. I think I even texted you like, congrats. And you were like,
Yeah, you did.
I
Thank
could
you.
just
That was
tell
great.
that your head was spinning like, I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
I can't believe this is happening, but this is amazing. So let's
Yeah.
talk about that. What drew you to that script?
Mhm.
And it's certainly an interesting story, and it did have an advantage. It was attached to a hit song, so it was kind of cheating a little bit, because you had this amazing song that everybody already loved, so you kind of had you were given a boost, let's say, from associating it with that.
Yeah.
It's like having an A-list actor attached. There's a boost that comes with the fact that Nicholson is attached. So you had a song attached that was certainly beautiful. But what happened? How did this happen? Tell us about that story unfolding, and then the aftermath as you were
Yeah.
watching this thing explode.
I try not to use the word I for me, because I really believe in seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall come unto you. And I really pray God's will, not mine, in my life. So with I Can Only Imagine, this was absolutely seeded by God. Completely. This wasn't my idea. I was driving to my office in Santa Monica one day. It was in the spring of 2009. And I was turning onto the Pacific Coast Highway, where the beautiful ocean, beautiful spring day, the ocean crashing on all this. And I literally had an epiphany. And it was to make that the epiphany included not just, it wasn't I Can Only Imagine specifically, but it was to make a series of films based on iconic Christian songs to replicate the worship experience that we have in church, but instead inside a movie theater. And when I got that God epiphany, I had Holy Spirit chills. I literally pulled my car next to the Pacific Ocean and I sat there, and I just felt like the Holy Spirit was on me. And I was just completely wowed by what I just received. And then I got this other epiphany to call a friend of mine in Nashville that was a top executive at a big music company. So I called him and I said, listen, I just got this download, I believe, from God, and here it is. And my title at the point was Gospel Music Theater. I didn't know if it was gospel music only or Christian contemporary, but it was just music driven, inspired by iconic Christian songs. And so I said, what songs do you have? And the executive said, well, I have I Can Only Imagine and Shout to the Lord. Which one do you want? And I was floored, because I'm like, you have I Can Only Imagine and Shout to the Lord. I said, well, I know the story to Shout to the Lord. I wasn't drawn to the story. I kind of knew the story of Darlene Chuck, but I was like, no. I said, and I love I Can Only Imagine, my favorite song, but I don't really know the story behind it. So he started telling me, well, this is inspired by true story of the lead singer, Bart Millard, Mercy Me. I certainly knew who they were. He started telling me, and I said right there on the phone in 2009, I said, I'm going to turn that into a movie. Just like that. I knew it. The minute that song, he started telling me about the story, I just knew it full stop. And then I went and I got a hold of I happened to have met Bart's manager, Mercy Me manager, Scott Brickle. I'd met him, oh gosh, about 5 years before that. And so we were friends, and I called him up and I started talking to him about making a movie on the song, and one thing led to another. And then I met with the band at Puckett's in Franklin, Tennessee. And Brickle, known as Brickle, put me in front of Bart and the band and said, okay, go ahead and pitch your idea. And I pitched it and said what I saw and about wanting to use Bart's story as to write develop a screenplay from, and as to how this iconic song was written. And they said, okay, let's do it. And a series of events, I ended up in development at Sony Pictures for Sony Affirm, Rich Peluso, who's great. And I was with Rich for a few years. And then there was a big mishap that happened with the financing of the picture. And so it didn't work out at Sony. But Rich was the one that had mentioned, well, during that time, the Irwin brothers, John and Andy and Kevin Downs. So Kevin I'd known for many, many years before that. Because I've been one of the things that I've done in my career is, as you mentioned, is be a distributor, opening up the floodgates. So I did that through domestic theatrical distribution and released with my partners, about 9 pictures theatrically in the US back in the 90s. And then through Mission Pictures with my partner, Siobhan, we co-founded Mission, and then we sold over 200 movies and opened up the international marketplace. But in any event, coming back to Imagine, it was a situation where during that time of Mission Pictures, which I started Mission in 08, I knew about the Irwin brothers. They were actually with Rich Peluso, directors that we were thinking about as great possibilities, a great possible directing team to come on board Imagine. But then when things didn't work out at Sony, not Rich's fault at all, it just was a financing thing. I got a call from Kevin, and then I got a call from another group that called me that said, hey, we have all the money for I Can Only Imagine. Kevin said, we don't have any money for I Can Only Imagine. So he wanted to do it, but he didn't have any money. But he said, and the other group had all the money. But what did I do? I went and I prayed. And I said, Lord, talk about, here you are as a producer, one group saying, hey, here's all the money to make the movie. Here's another group saying, we don't have any, we'll raise it. And I know how hard it is to raise it, but I went and prayed. And God clearly showed me, you go with the guys that don't have the money because they're going to raise the money. And true to Kevin's word and John and Andy, they raised all the money. And we went forward. That was 2015. So here I was, 2009, the God Epiphany, 2015, we all came together. And then 2018 is 3/16/18. So John 3/16, how good of a theatrical release date can you get? But we released the movie, but Kevin and I crack up because we were talking about this we did a panel for the American film market. Hollywood literally said, by the way, they had this massive campaign. Lionsgate was fantastic, came on board with I Can Only Imagine as the distributor. And but Hollywood itself projected, I think Kevin said $1.5 million we'd open to. And I thought it was only 3. I'd seen an article where it said, oh, they'll open to $3 million. In the meantime, we had over 100 million views on Facebook of the trailer, our teaser or sizzle, and then our full-length trailer. We had over like 120 million views, and we're thinking, maybe something's going on here. Maybe we have something. Anyway, we opened to 17.1 million, blew the doors off of, Hollywood was like, well, what? I mean, and it's still incredible to believe that happened, but all glory, honor, and praise to God. And I will say, Kevin and Andy and John did a fantastic job, but it takes a village.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of people to make a movie. And so that's what's beautiful. It's so collaborative. I mean, I do what I do. Kevin does what he does. The Irwins do what they do. But together it all worked. That's the time it all worked. So there's the story.
And again, like I said, I just remember when it was happening that I was just excited for it, because again, I knew that how, what business this is. And so, and listen, we're on the same boat. It's a very small subculture, this faith-based genre. So we kind of, we have to wrestle with our egos and pride that doesn't want anybody to succeed unless I'm in the film, foolishly, because we're humans. Okay. But on the other hand, and it had nothing involved with that, but I knew Bart, I knew you, and it's like, I was just glad that it was exploding, but also honestly, it was a proof of concept. Listen, our stories work. These are stories that should be told. This is stuff you should invest in, because it is all raises all boats. Hollywood is not, it's easy to sort of make a general broad brush of Hollywood like everybody's the same, because they're not. But there is a very dark element of Hollywood culture that is very antagonistic to faith people and Christians in general. That's just simply true. There's a darkness to it, and I do believe the enemy is very, very established in the arts because it's so effective in influencing people. There's just no, and we're seeing more and more blatant Satan worship. It's so crazy that it just makes me go, wow, Lord, has this always been here and we just have never seen it? And now they're just kind of coming out in the open and saying, let's fight. But they do oftentimes betray their bias when it comes to money. Here comes Mel Gibson doing Passion of the Christ, and whatever that was, $500 million or some crazy. And they're like, oh, wait, you mean you only have to put in 10 million and you make $500 million? How do we play? God's not done. Oh, so let me make sure we understand your model here. So you invest 1.5 million and maybe 3 million in P&A, and then you grow 70 million. Okay, yeah, we like this business model. we want to play too.
Yeah, I mean, I could, I
Yeah.
can only imagine 7 and it made 84, but I'll tell you what you're talking about, which I literally said to one of the heads of a studio recently. It was the first time I got to really say it. I said, we're really aligned. I'm in the profit business, you're in the profit business.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
B-O-F-I-T versus the
Right.
B-O-P-H-E-T. But
Right.
that's where the intersection happened. I picked up a script for the Omega Code. Matt Crouch produced that. And at the time, I mean, he spent a lot of money, and it was a very high concept, terrific film in terms of, I mean, the timing of Y2K and New Millennium and all that. And went out and shot in Israel. And so the production values were great. And I mean, that was a pivotal film. That's when Hollywood and Wall Street woke up. I picked that up at Script Stage when I was starting up this domestic theatrical distribution company with Norm Miller. But that film was the one that woke everyone up because, I mean, it was made, I think Matt made it for 7 million. But I mean, that movie went on to be a big deal when home video was a big deal. It made about 13 million at the box office, but the per screen average was almost $8,000. It was the same weekend that Fight Club with Brad Pitt opened. So Hollywood just went, what in the heck? Where'd you guys come from?
Yeah.
And our company was on, and Matt, and it was all over the place. So I mean, Hollywood woke up when, to your point, saw the revenue model was quite attractive there. So, and
but they
now,
also,
I just look at the glass half full.
well,
What I say is I look at the glass half full. You're absolutely right. There were years, but I'm looking at where we are now, where look, off of I Can Only Imagine and John and Andy and Kevin, terrific filmmakers, directors, and then because of building, and they'd made 3 really terrific movies before that, but I Can Only Imagine hit the financial level that Hollywood really, made a huge impact. They were able to get a great deal over at Lionsgate, and they were very worthy and deserving of that deal at Lionsgate, and then went off to make some terrific movies from I Still Believed, American Underdog. Point is that I think this is the time of the outpouring of the Spirit, where yes, there are a lot of movies and a lot of content that is done and still that, from The Exorcist to whatever it is, that is dark and edgy and a different worldview. But you're looking at a proliferation of in a time in Hollywood that hasn't existed for decades. I mean, we're in a very exciting time.
Well, and thank Jesus for Cindy Bond, who is at the forefront of that and helping to make that happen. And it's okay. You don't have
Others as well. But thank you.
What's that? Yeah, I know, but I mean, I'm
There were
talking to you.
others as well.
I'm talking to you right now. So
I appreciate
I'll give you
that.
your
I
props.
just worked hard. I worked hard for years.
And you deserved it. And you're strong, and you're relentless. And I mean, I hate to say for a woman, because oftentimes that kind of is a caveat that almost sounds like a backhanded compliment, but it's true. I think that's the other thing about it, Cindy, that I understood about your character as we got to know each other and would talk. I just saw somebody that was very strong and relentless and passionate. And I'm attracted to that because it's an attractive character trait for people that are warriors. We need it so badly, especially representing my faith and my people. I want people that have the goods, that can deliver the goods, because there's so few of us and so few opportunities. So when that opportunity is there, man, you got to deliver, because you may not get another shot at this, and you did. So that's amazing to me. I'm glad that thing panned out for you. So
just to respond to that, I really appreciate what you're saying, but honestly, it's a calling. I've had a calling on that, and I just put that out. And you've had a calling on your life, an incredible calling. And love the gifts and the talents that God's blessed you with, and that have blessed so many of us. So I encourage everyone that watches this or listens to this to know that I'm not special. I'm no different than anybody else. God's given me a calling. God gives every one of us a calling, and he gives us our strength. And I mean, he gives us certain skill sets, but as God says, it's about the body of Christ. So it's about 2 send 10,000 as opposed to 1 sending 1,000. So here I am in a place where we all depend on each other to make a movie. So I bring what I bring, and other people bring, and we prayerfully hope that it all works out. but everybody out there that's listening to this or seeing this has a special calling on their life too. And maybe it's this industry.
Yeah,
So,
maybe.
but
But most
I'm
importantly, we're responsible for doing something with that calling. That's the thing. There's a lot of people,
yes,
there's probably a lot of,
perseverance.
yeah,
Don't
but
give up.
well,
Don't give up.
but I'll bet you there's been some ground that has never been claimed because people, not because people didn't have the goods, they chose not to do the call. They were Jonah, and you
Mhm.
and you can run, but you can't hide. And ultimately, and it was my
Mhm.
story, I said, you wake up on the beach and whale vomit enough times, you start saying, maybe I should head to Nineveh, because he won't release you from your calling. He won't release you. You can run and you can be miserable, but if you've been called to something, he's waiting for you to get into the path and the groove you're designed for, or nothing will ever make sense. It will never be in balance. Your life won't be right because you're not where you were belonged all along. And sometimes we underestimate the value of that, because if it doesn't seem as exotic, like a movie producer or an actor or a comedian, it's not as important. It's like it is. I mean, how do you convince people to understand just because I happen to be in a profession where I got some kind of notoriety or fame or whatever you want to call it? I don't think of myself as better than anybody else, but only people that have been there and have eaten it can understand
Mhm.
that. Trust me when I say I don't think I'm as great as you think I am. I don't, because you only
Yeah,
get,
well, yeah, yeah. God's not a respecter of persons. You hit it. Humility is so important. And look, I'm in a business that's full of ego and pride. And I mean, there are certainly a lot out there, but this one I think in particular, because I mean, it's just Hollywood, you could easily argue the land of the seven most deadly sins or whatever. I mean, it's
right.
just all about love of self, right? I mean, pride is the biggie, and obviously was a problem for Lucifer, right? I mean,
Yeah.
isn't that the bottom line? God, I mean, pride's what got him out of. He wanted to be God, so I mean, pride's a big one to check all the time, and none of us are immune to it. So
Yeah.
I mean, because in showbiz, people are constantly giving you accolades and just lifting you up, and I'm just like, no, it's not. I lift God up. So I constantly check myself to make sure I'm not taking the Hollywood gas, as we say, and getting full of myself. And because I know where the calling came from, and I know where the gifting came from, and I know where projects come from. God brought me. I can only imagine. I mean, I might be the mother of the film, but God took Bart through a huge, difficult life experience, and the blessing was that out of that horrendous experience of how difficult it was. I mean, his life story is tough. That
Mm.
what he went through was so difficult.
Yeah.
But out of the ashes of that, came redemption and came this incredible song that has impacted countless millions.
Yeah.
So God's had his hand on Bart all these years, and the band all these years, and Scott Brickle all these years. And
Yeah.
so, and again, and you look, it's been a big part of their longevity. They've had such success, but they're humble guys. They're guys that genuinely, authentically walk the talk. To me,
Mhm.
that's how you have that's what I strive for, to be in God's will, not in my head, not my will.
Well, it's easy to say, hard to do. And everybody that's a Christian thinks they're doing that. But if you look at how God
It's not
defined,
easy.
right, and when you see how God discusses that salvation that we experience, he says, work it out with fear and trembling. Work it out. In other words, you never finish this honing
Mhm,
process, this chipping away at your pride, your ego,
mhm,
your flaws, your so forth. And fear and trembling, do not take this for granted, because oftentimes our sin is unconscious. We don't realize when we're getting sucked into the world. We don't sometimes see it. It's very
mhm,
difficult be told how great you are and then not believe it. It's hard because humans kind of want a pat on the back. We want to feel like we're valuable. We want to feel like we're special. We want to feel like we have purpose and meaning that gives us something unique to us. We all want that, need that, and God gives it to us individually. But boy, it's hard not to
mhm.
get caught up in the world and its little
Mhm.
offers because they feel good for a season, or you wouldn't be tempted. So there's a reason why temptations work, because it feels good for a minute, but in the end, it's dead. Well, Cindy, listen, I'm going to ask you one more question, because this is for my subscribers that go to bradstein.com, and they're in the Militia of the Mind and the Mighty 10,000. It's a special bonus question I give just for them to help my ministry grow and what I'm trying to do in telling God's story through film and comedy and live events and so forth and so on. So I think what I'm going to ask you is more of an industry question, but it would be your expertise. So of all of the films that you've seen, you're an expert at it. What would you say is the most, and it can be in any, it can be in any time, any frame or whatever, and it might even be something that only you would be savvy enough to know because it's your business, would be the most underrated faith-based film you've ever seen? So it may not have been pitched as a faith-based film, but you say, man, you should see this movie. What would you consider the most underrated, and every believer should see this if they haven't, faith-based film out there?
I will tell you one very underrated film I was blessed to have done the foreign sales on was a film that was made by Brent McCorkle.
Hey guys, I'm interrupting my own interview. If you want the answer that you haven't heard yet, go to bradstein.com and join one of the 3 tiers. It is the Militia of the Mind, it is the Warrior level, or it is the Special Forces. And then you'll get all kinds of special content and bonus answers to make you smarter than you could ever imagine. Go there now, jump on and join the Mighty 10,000. To know how we come up with the films we do, why some of them seem to succeed, what is missing. And there's actually so much more I would have liked to have talked about, but I don't want to go too long over, since I told you it'd be an hour. We've already gone over that. So maybe we can do it again someday, because I'd love to talk to you just about how we choose as actors and Christians to what parts we should be allowed to play. There's so many other pieces to this that I think a lot of faith-based performers would love to have some insight from somebody like you who's really in it. And it's just another conversation for another time. It would take up too much time. But folks,
Oh,
she's yes, I appreciate she's out there. She's doing her work. Pray for Cindy. Pay attention to what she's doing. Pay attention for her projects. If there's any places that people, maybe, I don't know, do you have maybe websites or subscriptions where people can put on our email, maybe, so that you'll have ways to contact them when you're marketing for the other? Do you have anything like that?
yeah, missionpictures.com, my website. And I thought the biggest part of my career was behind me, but it's actually in front of me. I can't even talk about the movies yet, but there are really exciting movies coming up ahead. So I will
Have they all been
definitely be
cast
hiring a lot of actors.
have they all been cast and already?
No, and always on the lookout for up and coming talent, because that's the future. So, I mean, John and Andy, you're so talented, and there are other John and Andys out there. We need more women directors. We need more women writers, more women producers. We need them.
Great.
So I really
Well-
encourage the women, because people I've worked with have been men my entire career,
Yeah.
yet I'm really the target audience. So
No,
and have
yeah.
been.
Well, and certainly in
Really good
faith-based.
opportunity for a lot of women to step up. Yeah, in the faith-based world, certainly, yes.
Yeah, for sure. They're the highest. They listen to most of the radio, everything like that. Well, listen, God just told me to
Yeah,
tell you.
that's
God just told me to tell you that there's a part for me in one of these upcoming films, and He said He's going to let you choose what it is. All right, I'll tell her. I'll tell her, Lord. Anyways, there's some huge part for me. Apparently, you're supposed to give me, or He's bringing locusts to your area. I'm just passing it on. I'm just the messenger. I'm just the messenger. But
The
anyway,
other ear pod is over there. I have to hear him tell me too. But you know what? You're right though. I am working on something in the comedy genre. So you might be right about that.
well, I
'Cause I
hope
do
you
have
would
a
think.
comedy
I would hope you would consider it. But I would love to do something with you.
course.
We've all known each other and maybe had a
Yeah.
mutual admiration society for each other, but we've never done anything together. Maybe something would work. If it fits, it does. If it doesn't, either way, I wish you the great God's success. But I hope we could do something together someday. And I have some ideas as I
Great.
brought to
I
you
love it.
periodically over the years, and throwing them your way and said, what do you think? So who knows what God might have for us? But either way, we're believers in
Right.
Jesus, and all that matters is that we're following His call on our life, and wherever that lands us, we're all going to heaven someday, and we can talk about it then. But in the meantime, Folks, remember that to be a true believer means to be a disciple. To be a disciple means you be willing to do whatever God asks of you, and that you are beholden to that, especially in this day and age where everything has gone sideways. You have to be the last truth teller on earth. You have to truly be a disciple. And yes, in America, you have to decide if you're willing to die for this, because this is where we're at in America. A new expectation of what it means to be a believer. It's hard, it's difficult, but it's also the most sacred, beautiful thing you can do, is to actually take Jesus seriously and crucify yourself for him, because in the end, God wins every time. Remember, if they say you're politically incorrect, always tell them, thank you for the compliment, because political correctness is not what God has asked of you. He says to be spiritually correct and to be seeking his face, and he will tell you where to go and what to do. And I am what I always am, God's comic Brad Stine, with another amazing interview with Cindy Bond and whomever else comes down the pike on Brad Stine Has Issues. And I'm doing what I am called to do, putting the woke back to sleep. See you next Monday.